The stories I could share. One of them was a woman who was on Xanax, and she came on a Wednesday, tried the sample, came back an hour later, bought a couple bottles, and then came back on Friday, like the hour that we were closing down the booth. And she said, and she's got tears in her eyes, and I'm going to cry just telling the story. But she said, I needed to come and tell you how grateful I am to you, because I've been on Xanax every day for the last 10 years. I cannot live without it. And I have not taken Xanax since Wednesday.
Hey, soul family. Welcome to the Alive and Awake podcast. I'm your host, Alicia Kay, and I have spent the last 20 years teaching people how to work with their wounds and overcome their greatest fears so they can learn how to thrive in a world where they were only taught to conform. Each week, we will dive deep into the practical, the spiritual, and the mystical so I can teach you how to do the inner work to know yourself, trust yourself, and eventually love yourself enough to create a world where you feel fully alive, awake, and free. So don't forget to hit that subscribe button and never miss an episode. Ready? Let's dive in. Welcome to another episode, everybody. I am beyond excited to introduce my dear friend, Shannon Morehead, who has an incredible, extensive background from registered nursing to an ayahuasca birth doula. She truly is a medicine woman who is here to change how we see our bodies, our connection to earth, how we heal, how we alchemize, how we work through our trauma, and how we get to be the embodied feminine that our souls created us to be. So thank you, Shannon, for being here. I have been geeking out about interviewing you. It's just a dream come true to have you in my life, one, as a dear friend and soul sister. And I was actually thinking that in May, it'll be like a year.
Wow.
Since we first
Time flies when you're having fun,
right? So yeah, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Alicia. It's an honor to be in your life as well. A very powerful goddess, and to be on your show. Happy to share with your people.
Yay. So I don't often do this, but I think that our story is very rare and worth putting out there into the world. So Shannon and I met through a conscious community called Fit for Service, and where we were in a full year program. And her and I, we kind of have very similar backgrounds. If you don't know this about me yet, I tend to be really picky about who I let into my personal space. I don't necessarily like sharing beds or rooms or like sharing rides. Like, I just love my solitude. And Shannon, well, no. Shannon didn't. Spirit pushed Shannon into my life. And I would just love to tell the listeners how you and I became to be a bond that is unbreakable. So we were both going into our second summit. It was a retreat after we did all this work in this community, in this container. And Shannon, it's so big. There's like 200 people. And obviously Shannon was not on my radar, and I didn't really know much about her, except that she was part of this community that we did a fast with. But what intrigued me about her is that she was doing a ayahuasca dieta, and then a 5-day fast, and then ayahuasca on the back end to spend time getting to know, was it the cedar plant or tree at that time?
In May, it was oak.
Oak. Okay. Yeah. So I would love to talk a little bit more about, your journey with the medicine and with these plants that you've gotten to know really well. Tell me about your experience in the airport that day. And then
Yeah, one of the things I found interesting about the different summits is I really tried to listen to my inner guidance about, should I plan ahead? Should I go with the flow? Should I have everything in order? And I found that for different summits, it was different. The first one, it was all about planning ahead, but for the Montana summit where I met you, my guidance was telling me to more go with the flow, which is a lot harder for me because I do have a bit of that control tendency, want to have everything organized so I could just relax and just go with that. And so I had my plane, all these people were chiming into the group chat that we had, like, I'm on that plane too. Oh my gosh. And so there was going to be like 15 of us all sitting together near each other, coincidentally, on the plane. And I was super excited about that. And then I hardly ever have my flights delayed, or I feel like I'm really lucky to have pretty smooth traveling in my life. And I'm at the airport and there's a mechanical function and my plane's delayed and I miss the connection in Denver to ride with everybody to Montana. And so I'm looking at flights and I'm like, wow, I hope I even get in there today. And I did. But I was not on that plane. And all of my pre-planned, got it all laid out, went right out the window. And I was like, okay, this is why I was supposed to listen, but I didn't freak out. I was like, God obviously has a different plan for me. So I just kind of threw it back out on the chat, like my plane got delayed and anybody going to be at the airport around, I think it was like 8:30 or 9 o'clock at night, you know? And
I
that's when
wasn't
you
it like
chimed
6 hours? Wasn't it like 6 hours that you were delayed?
Yeah, yeah. I was supposed to be in a lot earlier that day.
Oh, so on my end, I opened the chat and I'm like, oh fuck. I'm like, this woman needs a ride at 9:15 p.m. And I'm like, for me, I just like to be in my own little zone of genius. I'm like, want to process, want to listen to a podcast, want to listen to music. I don't really want to interact with anybody, let alone a stranger. Like, I was not
Yeah,
like prepared, but
gonna
something
decompress and clear your slate.
totally. So something
Yeah.
deep in my gut was like, I'm supposed to say yes to this. Like, I just knew it. It was an inner knowing where I was like, yeah, like my plane was literally landing when you said that you were landing too. And I said, yeah, I'll be at the airport. Like I have a car, whatever. And then here's the kicker, right? And so I said, where am I taking you or where are you staying? And what did you say?
I think I didn't know. Yeah, that was one of those pieces that I just kind of left up to
I
the
can't, like the
universe.
surrender and trust of that. I was like,
Yeah.
oh. And then I found myself also doing something that was so out of character where I was like, oh, okay, well, I'm staying at a hotel and I don't sleep with people. I don't invite people into my room. Like I was like, but again, something inside me said I am supposed to offer like my place to you. I said, okay, so I'm going to this hotel. You're welcome to come with me. If you need to stay with me in my room, we can share a bed. Not even yet knowing who I was
I should
picking
have
up.
started scratching my head, like, oh, I'm feeling itchy.
So funny. I was like, oh gosh, what am I doing? I'm like, here I am picking up this woman. I didn't know anything about you. I'm just like, what if she's like a total, nothing against hippies. I love them. It's fantastic. But I was like, what if she's like clingy and dependent on me and latches onto me all weekend? Like all my shit started coming up, right? But that was clearly my old wounded self that wanted to, stay in protection mode and not open. And the moment that I picked you up, it was just all of the anxiety and worry and fear. And mind you, she's like tracking in like all this, like she's like six bags, like full cart carrying. Like, I'll help you. I got you. Let's do this. Come on. But it was just incredible. And we ended up spending a fantastic night together. And the more that we started talking, it just became an instant bond of why I knew that there was that prompt inside of me to say yes to her and to offer something that I was certainly not comfortable offering. But that's what happens when you get to really trust that guidance within and just learn to not question it anymore.
Yeah. I
And
imagine you
you,
were thrilled when I said, I'm really going through it. I think I should get my own room. So you were spared that part anyway.
oh, I forgot that moment. But
Yeah.
so when she did say I should get my own room, she's really going through a lot right now. Immediate relief actually came over me because I was like, oh, she's not going to cling to me. She knows how to take care of herself and she knows what she needs. Like that was actually a moment of like an exhale.
Yeah, yeah. And I think that's something that we can always use as a litmus test. Not that like we shouldn't be authentic and allowing our place, but like knowing when a friend or a future friend's like, no, I need my own space. I think that's such a powerful sign for me that I can be authentic with this person and they can be authentic with me and real and ask for what you need or put up a boundary, that, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, because my whole first half of my life, I was such a caretaker, right? I would give and give and give and give. And if anybody needed anything from me, it would like to burnout. Even with my clients when I first started my practice and my work, it was all about giving and giving and not so much about receiving or knowing exactly what I needed or how to set boundaries or how to say no. So in that moment I was like, oh, she definitely can stand on her own and I don't have anything to worry about. And it was just you know a beautiful connection from the moment that I picked you up and got you in the car, and we had, what was it, maybe, I don't even know if it was an hour or 50 minutes.
Yeah, it was a little bit of a ride.
Yeah, but we
Yeah.
had so much in common, like from being single mothers at one point to being raised by single moms to the trauma that we went through, relationship
Your
stuff we were
horseback
dealing
riding.
with, like
Yeah.
horseback riding. Like there were so many synchronicities in
Yeah.
our early life. And it really became a beautiful sister bond from that moment. And I was grateful to have that going into that summit because I needed it and I immediately trusted you um, for all of the things that I needed throughout those 5 days. And it was really beautiful to just have you as the anchoring point for me as I worked through all that I worked through that week.
Yeah. Likewise, you did the same for me. We both came in with our stuff, tried to keep it, not put it on each other, but also support each other. It was a beautiful balance.
Oh, it was so good. It was awesome. So I would love to talk about, or for the listeners to hear about, what got you into your relationship with exploring plant medicine and using these incredible energies to heal your mind, body, and spirit.
I'll try to keep it succinct. That's definitely a large part of my life.
Yeah.
Psychedelics found me when I was like 19 years old. I was still a teenager. And so I've been exploring my consciousness more in a recreational sense from the age of 19 until about or late 30s, maybe 20 years. And then I was at a wedding, and one of my dear friends was talking to another dear friend about his DMT experience, which was a smoked experience. It lasts about 15, 20 minutes. And I was floored. I was like, whoa, there's a psychedelic out there I haven't tried. So that like little part of me that's like, psychedelics, yay, was like, let's do this. And the one friend was like, oh, when you're ready, it'll find you. And I was like, what are you talking about, Jay? You probably have it in your back pocket. And he's like, no, when you're ready, it'll find you. And he was wise. And it wasn't the time or place, obviously, right, without the right set and setting. So I came home, told my husband Travis about it. We did a bunch of research and put it out into the world like, all right, ayahuasca, when we're ready, you're going to find us. So come find us. We're ready. Fast forward 5 years later, I think it was 5 years. And we're just like, what is wrong with us? Like, why aren't we ready? Why hasn't she found us? Of course, making it about us. And he had it in his cart, in his shopping cart. He had the plant, just the ayahuasca vine. He's like, the vine's not illegal. We can just buy the vine and make our own tea. We had no idea what we were doing. Like, please don't try this at home. Do not buy your own ayahuasca vine and make it. And we were just like completely ignorant.
No, 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 no. Oh my
So
gosh.
yeah. And so he ended up not buying it. He just kind of closed his computer and for whatever reason felt like he wasn't supposed to buy it. The very next day, a good friend of mine called and said, hey, I found this family in South Florida that's really experienced in serving ayahuasca. They're great. You want to come? And I was like, yes. So like the following weekend, we were at our first ayahuasca ceremony. And my intention at the time was to heal my lungs. I had developed asthma from the age of like 19, 20, and I was just tired. I was done with it. In my research, I realized that ayahuasca was for healing, not for recreation. And so I had my list of intentions, and one of those in addition to opening my third eye and all that stuff, was healing my lungs. And so that's what kind of
Interesting,
brought
because
me.
people don't, sorry to interrupt you, but people
Yeah,
don't always think of it to actually like heal medical issues. Like
right.
most people will go to like heal emotions or be revealed certain things or blocks or where they're stuck or certain things like that. But you're really the first person that I know that uses this avenue to heal physical ailments in the body.
Hmm.
And we certainly can get into that, but those elements and what I've been taught to believe and understand are foreign to the body, right? It's not how we're formed.
Right.
It's of this world. It's not of our true essence, of our authentic self, which is whole, healed, complete, not in pain, not having these issues that society, medical systems want to medicate or numb or make us think that there's something wrong with us. But we are so capable with the right environment, with the right help to heal the body. And you, you exude that. You've done that. So yeah, so your intention to heal your asthma would be like, oh, for me, I'd be like, oh, well, I want to like, I want to see spirit. I want to go in the astral realm. You're like, no, 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 I want to heal something in
Yeah.
me.
Yeah.
Wow.
And that
So,
that was really like the beginning of me understanding the direct connection between our emotions and our physical body, the energetic body, the emotional body, and the physical body, because it all started to kind of come up emotionally and over the years. And I healed the asthma by allowing the emotions to be processed through what I call my processing unit, which is the voice.
mm,
Um, but that was the beginning of this journey. And I never thought that I would be a medicine woman. That was not any of my intention. After my first couple of ceremonies, I drinking ayahuasca. I was like, no way. I don't know how these facilitators do this, like drinking this every weekend. No way. Oh my gosh. And then she started to kind of pull me in that direction through visions, through dreams. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to be drinking this stuff the rest of my life. Shit.
I keep getting holy goosebumps all
And
over as you're talking to me like that. Right? It's like you
um,
don't find your path finds you.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And I think that, for me, at this, there's no like set rules, but I think when I look at someone who's drawn to the medicine path, we have a lot of people come to our center and they're like, will you teach me? Will you teach me? And one of my questions is like, why do you want to do this?
Mm,
And like one of the answers that I got was, well, see the people like look up to you and they revere you and they adore you. And, I want that. And I was like, wow, like that's not a reason to get on this path.
right.
And so I think that we really need to, just like you said, let spirit guide us on our path, whether it's, just going with the flow, allowing things like the beginning story of how I had everything planned out. It doesn't always go the way you think it's gonna be. So just letting go of control and finding our purpose organically.
It's so incredible to think about because psychedelics, you know, recreationally would be is one thing, for me personally, done, psilocybin, LSD, like, in my 20s, doing the things that young people do to experiment. But in a ceremonial space, there was always the fear, right? Like
Mm.
and I think for a lot of people out there, it's the like letting go of control, not trusting. One of my biggest wounds was this fear around I don't know if I'm going to be okay. Right. That was my story, like my whole life that played through of I don't know if I'm going to be okay. Um, and I've done so much work, just through the therapy route, through the self-help, like constantly digging in and digging in and digging in, as you and I have talked about, endlessly around how we work through things that are coming up in us. So how did plant medicine like assist you on that journey? Like how did it come into play for you to start to do that deeper work within yourself with that tool?
What a great question. I think to speak to what you alluded to is a lot of people are afraid. And in my experience with talking to many people who come to us for ceremony is they're afraid of what they're going to see.
Mm.
And I think that it's really unfortunate that so many of us are kind of programmed and conditioned with a lot of shame and a lot of guilt. And there's a lack of self-love and a lack of self-acceptance
Mm.
for ourselves, for the things we've done consciously, unconsciously, whatever we want, however we want to label it or compartmentalize it, it all is the same.
Mm-hmm.
And I think what happens in the ceremonial space more often than not is people are met with love and compassion.
Mm.
Sometimes it's very direct, but it's not judgmental. Like the first ceremony I had, it was very succinct. I didn't get a lot out of it, like in a nutshell, but I did get a lot out of it. It was like so simple, but she just said to me, "You're lazy." And at
Mm.
the time, I was a single mom. I had my own business. I was a top producer in insurance sales. Like I was not lazy. I had incredible work ethic, and I still do. And I was like, "What are you talking about?" And then she just showed me. But her saying like, "You're lazy," there was no judgment. It was just very matter of fact, very straight, very to the point. But I felt loved and accepted in it.
Mm.
And she showed me how I didn't roll up the hose when I was done with it. Or if I was really tired one morning, I would wake up my daughter by talking to her more like screaming loudly from the next room versus going in like I normally would and hugging her and kissing her. And
Mm.
like these little things of where I was showing up lazy and how it was impacting other people in my life. It's like, oh my gosh, wow. It was like very eye-opening. And I think that the things that we see are not the scary things. Not sometimes it could be maybe, but I don't feel like that's really the general consensus of what people report after their ceremony. It's usually with love and with compassion that they're shown this is kind of how you are and this is the impact on the world around you, or you think that you're like this but you're actually not, and the reason why you think that is because of this treatment or with this experience that you had. And then we have a light bulb go off like, wow, I'm not who I thought I was. I'm there's nothing to be ashamed or guilty about. So it's a really beautiful process. And it's an endless rabbit hole in a field full of rabbit holes that we get to choose to go down, to explore. I think for so many people, when they have this beautiful, empathetic, compassionate, but like tough love, come a mama ayahuasca voice, which I think is very similar across all plant medicines. Yes, there's a different energy, different spirit, but it all approaches very much the same with love and compassion, with directness. Um, when we uncover these pieces of ourself, like, oh my gosh, that's the impact that my daughter feels when I'm like, hey, time to wake up from the other room. Like instead of coming in and tickling her and singing a song in her ear, like two very different ways to wake up. Imagine your alarm clock going versus like a little Bach symphony, coming up, slowly, volume increasing. Like it changes the whole tone of the day. It has a ripple impact on everything. So for me to see that was like, wow. Why wouldn't I want to see more of that? Because that's an easy thing to shift. Just get out of bed, go wake her up with love, you know?
I love that. And I love how you touched on that spirit is always loving. It sometimes will give us things that we want to, like, we don't want to like necessarily recognize, or that's hard for us to face, but it is in the most loving, highest good for all way. And what people don't understand is that we are the creator, like we are source, we are spirit in human form, and therefore we have free will choice whether or not to listen, whether or not to follow through with the medicine or the messages. And like you said, it's like, well, why wouldn't I want to do this in a different, more loving way that causes more peace for my home and for my daughter? Right? It's not harsh. It's not like a rude wake up call that's, like, and that's, spirit's going to slam you down and like show you all these things that you're not ready to see. Like it is for your highest good
Yeah.
to face these things that are in the shadow that we might not even be consciously aware of.
Yeah.
And I love what you've told me about how you started your journey when your daughter was 10, which is also the age of my son currently, and how it really shifted the dynamics between the two of you. So
Mm.
I would love for you to share the story of some of the messages that you received around your parenting when you started to integrate this medicine.
Yeah, yeah. One that comes to mind. Um, Plant medicine and spirit, I think, generally speaks in very short, direct messages.
Mm,
So when people ask me, I'm going to kind of go on a tangent here, but when people ask me, like, how do I know the difference between my intuition and my ego, or when spirit's guiding me and when it's just my mind? One of the ways that I can tell is because I know when ayahuasca's talking to me, it's very short,
mm,
like the you're lazy. It wasn't a long story, you know. And
interesting.
so one of the messages that she said, I was like, you know, teach me something about Maya. So you have to ask as well. There's a whole like ask and you shall receive piece of it.
Love that.
So if you we just go through life and don't ask for guidance, don't ask for help, or even in ceremony, because life is a ceremony, but even in plant medicine ceremony, I was like, show me something about my daughter. Show me something I could use. So first step is ask.
Mm,
And then it said, watch her.
mm,
And there's that mama part of me like, oh my God, what's she up to? What do I need to watch out for? She's into something, you know? And I asked about that and I didn't get an answer because I think that the answer was comprehensive. It wasn't like, watch out for this thing. And what I noticed in the week after the ceremony was at the time, and still, but at the time, I had a career that allowed me a lot of flexibility and I could be at all of her, you know, swim practices and, you know, field trips. I was a chaperone. So I was often around her, but I was not often truly present.
mm.
And so on this day, because I was working, I could work from anywhere. So I would be checking my phone, answering emails. And so on this particular day, I was at her after school swim practice, sitting on the beach lounge chairs around the pool with in my career outfit with my computer on my lap. And I'm taking care of business and she's swimming. And I realized I could bring tears to my eyes. Like I realized I'm not watching her. I'm here, I'm present, but I'm not watching her.
Oh,
And I closed the computer and I watched her and I got the message. There wasn't anything that she was doing, at least not that I know of yet. She may tell me in another 10 years when she gets old enough, but there wasn't anything that she was doing that I needed to watch out for. I just needed to give her my attention. I needed to let her know I'm watching you. We want
oh,
to be seen. We want to know that someone is interested enough to watch us, to see us, to observe us, to take in our essence. And what more can we give a child than to really see them and to let
oh,
them know we see them? And then after that swim practice, she noticed and she said, Mom, I saw you put your computer away and you watched me. And she was like, thank you. And
oh, I'm
oh, it
gonna
was
cry.
just
Whew.
so powerful. Like, how
Oh,
often are
so,
we all trying to survive and trying to get things done that we aren't truly with the people that we love?
oh, it is so powerful to reframe that. And that's it, right? Like my core wound from being a child was I was unseen, I was
Yeah,
unheard, I was invisible,
right.
literally invisible. And I I love that this is going out into the world because it is that simple.
Yeah,
But when we have so much wounding and we've been forced to be in these roles as women where we're constantly working and we're, I'm certainly, a single mom and I'm like trying to get work done. And I even noticed that with myself since you've shared that story with me, how much one, opening my heart and clearing out all the energy in my body through breath work, through journaling, through letting myself just cry and purge and in other ways, just the amount of like presence that gets to expand out. Because when we are in our traumatized self, when we're in survival mode, when we're in rushing mode, when we're in to-do list mode, we are not in our feminine side. right?
Right.
We are not in that heart-centered, pure presence of the mother, of of the nurturer, of the lover. And our world and our family and our children, they're suffering immensely because of that.
Yeah. Yeah. I think mental illness is on the rise a lot because of that lack of connection. And that's just one piece of a huge puzzle that we could go down the rabbit hole of lack of connection.
Let's go there, because I'm just about to introduce the
Mhm.
conversation that you had with one of my students at a women's retreat that I was holding about her anxiety, and how anxiety is at an all-time high in our culture. And one of my primary foundations is that anxiety is not an anxiety problem. An anxiety is a repressed emotion problem. It's the conglomerate of all of the things and all of the sensations and all of the feelings that you haven't been allowed to express. And so that energy stays stuck and stored in the nervous system, in the body, and it can't be released. It can't be purged. And so it comes in the form of anxiety, of worry, of fear, of overthinking, not being able to sleep, like a complete nervous system disruption. And I loved, sort of like in the back of my head, tuning into your conversation around how this amazing medicine has really shifted people's relationship with their anxiety and with their body. So I would love for you to dive into the ayahuasca tinctures that you have created, and how kind of like spirit has talked to you to bring that into existence, and how it can be used for deeper connection with the body, with self, to really heal what's going on within.
Yeah. Wow. I just feel so honored and privileged and fortunate to have stumbled upon this. And my understanding, my husband Travis and I were the very first people to bring an ayahuasca microdose tincture to the market. And the way that we found it was through making the medicine. So we were making medicine. And so for people who don't know, ayahuasca is two different plants that are brewed together. Occasionally different shamans or people will put other plants in it, but really like true pure ayahuasca is just these two plants. And so we had more of the vine, the ayahuasca vine, which for your nerd geeks out there is a MAOI, a monoamine oxidase inhibitor. And the other piece is the chacruna, the Psychotria viridis plant, which has the DMT, which is the God molecule, the psychedelic component. And so we had more of the vine than the DMT piece. And I was just like, wow, we have all this vine. I don't want to waste it. And that intuitive voice was like, tincture it.
Mm.
I was like, duh, I've been making tinctures for years. Why wouldn't I do this? Of course, duh. So we tinctured it, put it in a bottle, started just giving it away to people who would come to our multi-day retreats as, as a thank you, a way to stay connected to their process as they went in. And we got some good feedback. We put it on the website. We had occasional orders for people, I guess, just randomly Googling microdosing. And then we went to the Psychedelic Science Conference. So between Fit for Service last year, I gave out a lot of samples, just wanted to share this medicine with people. And also through the Psychedelic Science Conference, which was our first time actually coming out into the public and sharing what we do in a very public way. There was 12,500 people at that conference, and we gave out a sample to a large majority of them. And the feedback, it was a huge sample size. And so we had this on the spot, like in this course of 3 days, feedback that was phenomenal.
Mm.
The stories I could share. One of them was a woman who was on Xanax, and she came on a Wednesday, tried the sample, came back an hour later, bought a couple bottles, and then came back on Friday, like the hour that we were closing down the booth. And she said, and she's got tears in her eyes, and I'm going to cry just telling the story. But she said, I needed to come and tell you how grateful I am to you, because I've been on Xanax every day for the last 10 years. I cannot live without it. And I have not taken Xanax since Wednesday. So for 3 days, I have not taken my Xanax, and I'm at a conference with 12,500 people, and I feel great. We have had people in wheelchairs come up who are, quadra or paraplegics, and talk about the pain that they're in. And we never thought about it as pain control, but it's anti-inflammatory. And this guy comes up and he says, I need to get like 4 bottles of that to last me a little while, because I've been in this wheelchair for, I forget how many years he'd said, but I haven't been out of pain since today, until today.
Wow.
Yeah, I've had people talk about their dreams going off the chart, people talking about intuition, just feeling calm. I used to love to take it when I knew I was going to interact with my daughter's father. And so
Mm.
he could really stir the pot. And so I would just take it, like take a little bit of heftier dose before I was going to go see him. And I call it like making you unfuckable with. I would just be like Neo dodging darts, like, oh yeah, anything else you want to share with me? Okay, got it. You think I'm blah, 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 blah. Okay, cool. Well, thanks for expressing yourself. Like it just didn't land.
I freaking love that. Literally, right? It's
Yeah,
so, I mean, just so many things that you just shared are remarkable, right? So I don't want to get on a soapbox about Xanax, but what people don't understand that's being prescribed out there is, just let me give you a little bit of a reference. I used to work in a trauma and addiction clinic, literally like trauma and addiction in a hospital-based clinic. And people were not allowed to come into that clinic if they were on Xanax or any other benzodiazepine like Klonopin, Xanax, Valium, anything that they took that was a benzo, they could not get into our addiction program until that was out of their
wow,
system. The
wow,
reason being was because it's so highly addictive and you cannot heal the body unless you're able to feel the emotion, right? It numbs your nervous system so much. And then you become phobic and fearful of your inner experience. So anything that you essentially have in your body that you haven't dealt with or felt, then you start putting a benzo on top of that, you essentially stop processing at that point. And because you're so numb, all of the experiences that you go through when you start taking that benzo, any stress, any crisis, any feelings, any pain, the body absorbs, but the body is so numb that when you stop taking that substance, it comes flooding back like a huge tidal wave, and you feel like you can't cope and you feel like you're going crazy. So you just keep taking more. It
right,
is the most disservice, I mean, on top of alcohol, to the body. And you are essentially like in this perpetual state of becoming dependent on that to heal the emotion, which is anxiety, which is stress, whatever it is, the reason you start taking it, it makes it worse tenfold over time. So I just love the fact that this woman said that she's been on it for 10 years. Mind you, they put you on it and they don't want to take you off of it
right,
because it's
of
too
course.
risky to take you off of it,
Yeah,
because you could go into, I mean, with your nursing background, I'm sure you could
yeah,
speak more about that, but they don't ever intend to take you off. So I love that this is an alternative option. Obviously, talk with your doctor, that type of
right.
stuff. Talk with Shannon. She's the expert in this field. She has a nursing background. She's incredibly medical, and she knows her stuff. So just pain, anxiety, right? What was the third thing that you mentioned?
Depression,
Depression. Yeah, let's riff
depression.
on this a bit. What have you seen it help with?
Yeah, so one of the things that we see it a lot is people who want to come for ceremony can't be on any psychotropics, Adderall, SSRIs, anti-anxiety, like any antidepressants, not safe to take with ayahuasca. And so people want healing, they want to come, but they, like same as your addiction unit, they got to get off this stuff to be able to come in and sit in the ceremony. So what we'll do is we'll recommend that they get a bottle of the ayahuasca tincture, the microdose that's just the vine, no DMT. It's a totally legal. You're not going to trip or have to worry about taking too much, nothing like that. And that they take it to their doctor and they talk with their doctor who has them prescribed whatever medication it is. And many doctors actually, surprisingly, even to the patient surprise, are like, yeah, I would love to see you get off of this. This is a great way to do that. And they will guide them in tapering down on the pharmaceutical and then increasing on the ayahuasca microdose so that they don't feel a lot of the brain zaps and the different side effects that can go on from coming off of these things. So that's one thing: anti-anxiety, antidepressant. Obviously, I can't say that it cures or treats any diseases, but I can say it makes you feel calm, makes you feel happy, it makes you feel peaceful. The anti-inflammatory piece, some of the pain piece. One thing that we have noticed is, like you mentioned, when you stop numbing and suppressing, things will start to come to the surface. So it's not a common response, but I've had a couple of people say, yeah, I felt a lot worse than I did when I was on the antidepressant. I just wanted to cry all the time. And my response is, you wanted to cry because you have tears to process. Eventually they want to be processed. And so if you open that door and give them an opportunity to come out, please let them out of the closet. Not processing our emotions is emotional constipation. What happens when you get constipated? It's really uncomfortable. Like,
I
it's
never heard that one before. That's
not
totally
good.
stealing that.
Yeah, totally. Take it. So yeah, dreams, our dreams are master key into our subconscious space that is totally true and real. It's not that every dream that happens is true, but the subconscious space doesn't lie. It's going to give you an accurate guidepost. So it doesn't mean that if I have a dream that my husband cheated on me, that he's cheating on me. It might mean that I have some insecurity that I need to address.
Right.
So not that dreams are direct representation of the truth, but ayahuasca can give us access into that subconscious space in a way that we recall it, we remember. And like a lot of our dreams are what I call composting the day. They're psychological compost. So they don't really have a lot of meaning. When we take the tincture, we get more dreams that actually come from that space where it's like, maybe you should look at this area of your life, and it's a blind spot. So it's kind of like a mini ceremony if you put some effort and an intention and sit down and write down the dream and think about what each thing might mean. And whoa, there's like a whole message there. Every single night we have this potential mini ceremony that we can have, and that tincture helps to open that up. Yeah, intuition. I think we mentioned that one, and the anti-inflammatory. There's so many little pieces to it that we're still just figuring out, but those are the big ones. And I think a lot of people deal with depression or anxiety or pain, inflammation, or feeling stuck, not knowing, wanting guidance and what to do, where to go.
Oh, it's so good. Before we even started talking about ayahuasca, I forgot to ask you how you would describe her. So, what I've heard is that people describe her as like a direct connection to the mother. And I've heard you describe, you keep saying her and she and as if it's its own essence, which it is. But I would love for the listeners to hear your description of how you would describe this plant.
Oh, wow, that's I think the first thing that I can say about ayahuasca is, and a lot of plant medicine and plant spirits, is they are ineffable. They are indescribable. So any words that I attempt to attach as a directive, it's like people say, the finger pointing at the moon. It's not the moon, it's just the finger pointing at the moon. So that being said, I think that for me personally, if I had not heard that it was a mother spirit or a grandmother spirit, I don't think initially that I was that discerning or astute to be able to say, oh, yeah, this is a feminine spirit.
Mm,
So I don't think it's always innately obvious to people when they experience this medicine that it's feminine.
mm,
So that may or may not be a strong descriptor. It's just easier because a lot of people do refer to this spirit that way, because that's the language that people understand.
well, how do you, I think, I don't know if it was you in one of our conversations or someone else that sort of described it being like the plant or the essence of the earth that like
Mm.
remembers and recalls all of you and your lifetimes and like is a direct connection to you and to source. Like when you, I think it was you that described it like that way of being its own spirit of like Gaia, of the earth mother.
It's funny is I think that that story was actually my mom.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Mom, if you're listening, don't take this the wrong way, but my mom is not woo-woo.
Okay.
She's very Christian, but she's not woo-woo, and she's done ayahuasca twice with me. And I called her one day. I was on a road trip, and she was like, I was mowing the yard the other day, and I felt the wind hit my face, and I saw the trees move. Like my mom never talks like this, right? And she's like, and I just felt the spirit of ayahuasca with me. And it was so loving and so wonderful, and everything just seemed more vibrant and alive. And I think my mom had like an awakening moment. And
Mm.
she said, I feel like ayahuasca is the spirit of the earth, of Mother Earth. If there was any, like, if Mother Earth is in a spirit, it's ayahuasca. And
Mm.
I just would, like, my jaw was on the ground, like, what? My mom just said this? Like, thank you. But I
Wow.
think she's right. I think that she's definitely right in that sense. And it is a lot of people find that the energy of ayahuasca is like a big warm hug, a
Mm.
lot of love, a lot of gentleness, a lot of compassion, while also not pussyfooting around the truth. Very direct, very efficient. She doesn't waste time. She knows the right time to bring something up or not. So if she's bringing it up, it's the right time. We still have free will to look at it or not. But she doesn't pussyfoot around. And it is like having access to the Divine Mother, to the infinite all of wisdom, of knowledge. There is no imperfection. There is no misspeak. She
Mm.
doesn't make a mistake. There's perfection in her words. There's perfection in the delivery. There's perfection in the whole entirety of how she interacts with us. And
Wow.
just like there is in the world. Now, humans, we fumble over our words, we screw up the timing all the time. But just like the mishap of my plane being delayed, there's no imperfection
Mm.
in the way that our life plays out. So I think ayahuasca can really be put into that, like, just divine, absolute wisdom. And when she comes into our body, people won't experience this as much with the tincture, but we have had some people who are very sensitive say they feel this with the tincture. But especially in ceremony, people report a lot of, like, maybe 20, 30 minutes after you take the medicine, there's this buzzing, this tingling, like almost like she's reading your DNA from head to toe. And you can feel this wave of, like, computer processing, scanning the body. And it's in those moments that she's getting to know us. She's infiltrating our cellular energy, our
Mm.
cellular memories, and she knows more about us than we know about ourselves. She knows all of our past and all of our future, as big as you want to make that world. She knows
That's so
everything
powerful.
about us, and she knows our attachment style. She knows how we need to hear things. And so that's why some person might be like, ayahuasca was really stern with me, and somebody else will be like, oh, she was really gentle with me, because she knows how that person needs to hear the message to receive it.
Mm.
And I think that she's never really hard or difficult. It's us that makes it hard or difficult. One of the things that we say in our introduction, and I think this is pervasive in life as well, is the degree of difficulty is related to the degree of resistance. Now, I got that from my
Okay.
mentor, but it is so true in everything. The degree of difficulty is related to the degree of resistance. So if we come into ceremony or even in life and we know, she might say, turn over on your belly, but you might feel like so sick and, oh, I can't move. I just don't want to move. And then you just feel sicker and sicker and sicker. But as soon as we, okay, I'm just going to surrender and just turn over on our belly, it just releases into the earth, or we purge, or something happens where it's gone. And
Yeah.
so I think it's the same in life, where we know we need to do something. We know the message is clear, but we're just like, oh, I don't want to. There's resistance, there's stiffness, there's rigidity, whether it's physical or in our mental. It shows up in so many different,
So
parts of our
true.
body.
I just want to do it my way.
Yes, yes.
I certainly have a part of me that's that way.
I think we all do,
Um,
yeah.
oh my gosh. And I just love that. And I think, it has been for me personally like a 3-year expansion of spirit working on me, not necessarily ayahuasca, like my own inner Holy Spirit around being connected to the earth mother and how the earth is alive and that our bodies are alive and we are really these living organisms that are not stagnant, we're not permanent, we're not physical, we are energy. And having that feeling flow through you of being an energetic being in a human body, it's like when the soul starts to merge with the human self and ego, there's a huge dramatic shift in how you see yourself and how you see the world and how you see people. And for me personally, like what I consume, what I want to consume, like, and what amazes me and what I love even having you in my life is that you've been such a model for me of like listening to that spirit and listening to that source of like what you are choosing to put into your body. Like we are infiltrated with toxicity. We'll just
Yeah.
leave it at that. But down to like, I'm not putting that oil in my body because it comes from this thing. And you going into a restaurant and checking labels and making sure that like, this is not going to like be put into my sacred vessel because I'm preparing for something big and I have a message that's supposed to flow through me. Like you are such a force to be reckoned with when it comes to listening to what your body needs. Can you speak a little bit how that's changed for you and your relationship with your own body so that the women out there and even men can hear what is possible and what that's like and why it's so important?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I was the embodiment of the degree of difficulty is related to the degree of resistance, because I've noticed that over my journey the last 10 or so years, especially with ayahuasca, that message of like what to do, when to do it, what to eat, what not to eat has morphed and transformed. Initially, it was no dairy, no eggs, because I was healing asthma and they were making me really mucusy. And over time, I've healed that emotion that was causing the reaction. And now I'm supposed to eat more creams and more eggs. And I have no mucus,
Mm.
formulation because of it. So I think, but initially I was very addicted to dairy, to eggs, to cheese. I love to have a milkshake before bed every night. and,
Yeah, I
and it
bet.
was so hard, and I would be in ceremony and I would purge. I'm like,
Mm.
okay, I got it. I got it. Okay. Yes. I don't want to purge this again, and do well for a month, 2 months, 3 months. And then, oh, just a little bit we're at a restaurant, just a little bit of cheese on my salad. Sure. Don't ask him to hold that off. And then that just snowballed into like right back into the milkshake before bed. Go back into ceremony, purge it up again. Like you get the cycle. Like I did that a number of times until finally I was like, this is stupid. This is insanity. I need to just be strong. I need
Mm.
to be a powerhouse. I need to be the example. I need to not be on this rat wheel of somewhat mastering and then falling off. And so I just became disciplined. And
Mm.
it doesn't mean that I'm perfect in it, but I'm closer to perfection than I was when I began. And I don't resist it. I found a way to initially the that mental voice, the mental entity that's like, oh, but it's just a little bit of cheese, it's going to taste so good, your salad's not going to taste good without it, blah 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 blah. And now I'm just like, no, the salad's going to be fine without it. I won't even miss it once I start eating it, which is true. And so I look at that everything's fine. Like I'm not missing anything.
Mm.
And the same used to be with the opinion of the waiter or the waitress or the people I was with. I was that, not anymore, thank God, but I was that quintessential person would hand somebody a list of things I couldn't eat, and they're like, oh, the server would like huff and go back to the kitchen and check and sorry, we don't have anything that doesn't have canola oil in it. And I was like, okay, well, I'll have a salad. And I brought my own salad dressing. So I really went to great extremes and braved the fear of judgment of what other people would think of me.
Mhm.
And that was very empowering. And thank God it's all been able to be relaxed since then. There's a few things like the canola oil and some other things, but my diet, because I've healed the emotions and I walked through that path, I now can eat a lot more than I used to without it triggering my body because I don't have that energetic imprint to, trigger that.
It's
So
so powerful. And I
yeah,
love that you reference that it's not necessarily permanent. It's just what needs to be done for now. So the
right.
body has the best environment for it to correct itself, to come back into homeostasis, right? It's
Yes,
always trying to get back into equilibrium. And there's things that we do to our bodies that make that not so.
right,
Um, but of course, none of that's being talked about. It's like, oh, if we give up dairy, we have to give it up for life.
right.
Not necessarily.
Yeah, yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
I
The one
love
thing I would say
that.
probably if we give up, we should consider giving it up for life is sugar.
Yeah.
But there are so many other ways to make things sweet, honey, agave. There's just lots of options for sweeteners that it doesn't need to be like we can't have something sweet. It's just cane sugar. So I don't know if your listeners or that cane sugar actually is like the crystals of the cane sugar cause micro abrasions in our body. It's like it tears us up on the inside.
Tell me more about that because I literally, I knew I had you on for a reason today. So as you know, I'm also pretty holistic and, disciplined with diet. I fast. So I just got done doing, maybe like a month ago, the 5-day keto reset, which is amazing. And I feel incredible afterwards. But like you said, slowly over time, I start adding that stuff back in. And it's like clockwork. The minute that I put sugar into my body is the minute that I need to have it every day. It's like
Mhm.
this horrific monster where it's like it starts with just like a piece of dark chocolate and then it's like, oh, I could have ice cream at night and maybe I want this after a meal, and like these
Right.
cravings start to merge and I'm like, what the fuck? Like, why
Yeah.
am I right back into the cycle of wanting that again? And I'm at the point where I no longer shame myself for it or I no longer judge myself for it, but it's
Yes,
also to the
exactly.
point of um you know what the bleep at this point? Like, so I would love to hear exactly what you mean by that, because for me, and what Spirit's been prompting me, right? It's like my face starts to break out. And I know that I'm purging the detox through my skin of the sugar that I'm putting into my body that my body doesn't want to hold on to anymore.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, well, it's the sugar. It's the sugar. Stop eating the sugar. And I'm, again, I eat tons of plants. I eat tons, like I'm really good with my food, but it's that one little thing where I'm like literally gnawing at me. Stop eating the sugar. Stop
Yeah.
eating the sugar. And then my
Yeah.
little rebel inside, I don't want to stop eating the sugar.
And the degree of difficulty is related to the degree of resistance, right?
Oh, tell me about what it does to the body because I
Yeah,
totally
yeah.
need to understand, because that will be the line in the sand for me because I give a shit about my health.
Yeah, I think that's a big thing for me too. Being a nurse, I needed to know the rationale.
Yeah.
So for one thing, if we think about sugar, strictly talking about the body is one thing, but I also like to dive into the environment.
Mm,
So I'm going to go there first because I know I'll forget.
okay.
But a few years ago, we took my daughter on a field trip during spring break to check out Big Sugar because we're in Florida, and South Florida is a huge um, industry for Big Sugar. I highly recommend you and your listeners watch the documentary called Big Sugar. It will change your mind about ever supporting this industry. It is
Mm,
fascinating, really, really fascinating. So we went down there and we saw the impact of water diversion from Lake Okeechobee into the sugar fields, affecting the Everglades, affecting the animals, affecting the alligators and all the wildlife in Everglades National Park, because it wasn't getting water. It was basically like drying up because of water diversion to feed sugar. Then you
Wow.
look at the runoff from all the agriculture and the fertilizers into the lakes and rivers around Lake Okeechobee, killing the dolphins, the fish, the turtles, like all the red tide that you see up and down the coast of Florida is because of big sugar.
Wow.
The environmental impact is massive, affecting tourism. People can't even go to the beach because it smells so bad from dead sea life washing up on the shore. It's horrible, horrible. So that's just one piece. Then when we look at our body, when you think about sugar and how it's processed, um, it's turned into a crystal. You know, you think about even just the title of one of the sugar brands, Dixie Crystals. It's a crystal. And so that crystal has a sharp edge microscopically. It has all these sharp edges around it. So when we take it internally, we're putting basically like diatomaceous earth. If you know, people use diatomaceous earth as a natural insect repellent or insect killer because it's diatoms ground up really small, which are really have very fine microscopic shards that kill any animal with an exoskeleton, like ants and roaches. And so that's what the
Oh,
crystals, the sugar crystals do in the inside is they have these sharp edges and they cause micro tears. They cause leaky gut because they're tearing up our gut. And so it's causing these micro tears, not only in our gut and our intestines, but also in our arteries, the pathways, any place that that sugar eventually gets delivered as a nutrient in your joints, you know, like all these places that we don't want to have inflammation, it's going right into that. The other
wow.
piece is that it's feeding bacteria, it's feeding yeast. And so I feel like the universe gives us a reprieve in some of the cause effect repercussions of our choices, but then once we know, it's like looking at it from like the spiritual world of like the age of accountability. Once we become knowledgeable about something, then we're held to a higher standard. So I've noticed that anytime I eat sugar, 95% of the time I get sick, even if it's just a
Mm.
bowl of ice cream. I will get a runny nose, sore throat. I'll start to feel sick. I'm like, oh my gosh, thank you for reminding me. Whereas before, I never really got sick every time I ate sugar. But it's like
Wow.
that spiritual reminder, like, hey, you just put crap in your body. So it's feeding bacteria, it's feeding candida. And I think that candida outbreak also then affects our pH. And then that might be what causes the skin eruptions. Um,
That makes
so
total sense.
inflammation, making us sick. And then sugar also feeds cancer. So if we have any emotional cellular dysregulation in, you know, deep in our body, and I think our bodies have weak links. So for me, mine was my lungs. For some people, it might be their gut. For some people, it might be their joints or their eyes. Like we all have a place in the body that's our weak link. Sugar is then going to feed whatever is not right in that weak link and make it worse. So
Yes.
there's
Yeah.
just nothing good.
I have
What I
not
tell
been
my
recovering
clients,
from my workouts since I started with like
oh,
literally like sugar, right?
yeah,
It's like,
yeah,
and it's not, and I don't want, it's whatever, it's a treat. So that's what we consider it, right? It's a
there's no
treat. But
shame,
it's the
for sure.
treat that honestly, I'm like, oh, this is why I feel super tight in my hips and my hamstrings are really tight and I have low back pain. Like that's all
Yeah,
inflammation that my body
all of it.
clearly is communicating to me.
Yes.
And I know to cut the sugar, literally.
Yeah.
But after this conversation, I actually started this week where I was like, yeah, this is just, my body is sending me all the signals to just literally cut the sugar.
Yeah,
Um, and that's okay, because I'm intuitive enough to listen. But this conversation is certainly giving me some uh more reason to cut the crap. Like it's just for comfort. I'm being lazy.
yeah,
And it's just not in alignment with what I ultimately desire.
for sure. You know, and I'm like you. It's after a nice dinner that I'm like, okay, now my sweet tooth is like, feed me now. And so what I found and what I tell my clients is if I just go in the pantry and I grab the honey bottle and I just kind of pour it in my mouth and get a nice tablespoon of honey and I just sit with that, that sweet tooth is satisfied.
Mhm. Oh, woman, you have got me hooked on peanut butter and honey with celery.
It's
And
like the
I almost sent
best,
you a
right?
picture the other day where I was like, yeah, channeling my inner
Get
Shannon.
the Jif. You don't need Jif with all the sugar added. Just get the regular honey or the
Yep.
regular peanut butter and pour some honey on the top and stir it up. It's so
So
good.
good. It's so good. It is my kryptonite when I'm, on the right path. So there's so many things I want to talk about, but let's getting back to, we definitely will put this in the show notes, but do you recommend that people just go to your website to buy the ayahuasca tinctures? Like what is the process? Do they have to consult with you first? Like if people really wanted to start to add this into their routine, what is your process for that?
Yeah, it's available on our website. If you go to the link ayadose, AYADOSE.com,
Okay.
it'll take you right to the product page.
Okay.
And I happily will consult with anyone who has questions or wants to reach out and get a guideline. But the instructions are on the bottle. And we just recommend, even if people are on antidepressants or other medications, they can start with a small amount. The
Mm,
key thing with that is to feel how they feel.
mm,
And I think that that's naturally going to happen. If somebody's on an antidepressant and they take too much, they're going to feel like, oh, I think I took too much. They might feel a little discombobulated for that day. It's not going to be anything that's dangerous. It's not going to be anything where you're like throwing up in the bathroom. It's not like that. It's just
mm,
going to be like, I don't feel good. I feel a little like out of sorts. Um, I've never had anybody say that, but that's what I imagine people would feel like if they did take that combined with the others. But we just tell people if they're on SSRIs or other medications, just start with like a half a dropper full, couple drops, and see how they feel, and then just increase it from there. For people who aren't on any medications that are contraindicated, we say start with 1 to 3 dropper fulls. So a dropper full is about a milliliter. And we start there because some people are very sensitive, and we have gotten feedback. We've had people at the psychedelic science conference say, I'm sensitive, just give me a dropper full. We were giving out 3. And they took the dropper full, and instantly their face was like, wow, I feel it. Like immediately they
mm,
could feel it like tingling all through their body, and then came back an hour later like, wow, I feel great.
mm.
And
Love
so
it.
we say start with 1 to 3 because we want to take the people who are very sensitive into consideration. I would say the average dose for most people is probably around the 6 to 10 dropper full
Okay.
uh, dose. So that's where it's perceptible, where you're like, oh, I feel really good today. I feel calm. I feel happy. I feel focused. My creativity, I'm getting all these ideas. I'm gonna write this down. Like
Yeah.
that's kind of what people are looking for. But
It is
even
my
on that,
go-to when I want to deep dive into journaling or course
yeah.
creation, or I have an idea. It definitely opens up the
Hmm.
channel, opens up the
Hmm.
heart,
Yeah.
intuition. There is a significant difference from just doing it without
Yeah.
it. I
Yeah.
love that.
What's your dose? What do you find gets you there?
7.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, everyone's different. So I think that's the biggest challenge is everything's dose dependent. And this is not like an over the counter, like, okay, take 5 of these and you're gonna, feel like this.
Hmm.
It's very nuanced. And I think a lot of that is based on our own energetic body and
Hmm.
how open we already are. So, and then what else we're doing in our life, how I'm, both you and can be very masculine, and so like just very direct and focused. So sometimes it takes us a little bit to be like, whoa, stop, listen, pay attention.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so
Absolutely.
that this tincture can help with that for sure.
Oh, I'm so excited to get this out in the world. It is just a game changer when it comes to holistic health and what our bodies are really capable of, and letting the plant, the medicine, the ancient wisdom of our earth and
Yeah.
bodies be our guide. So two things I want to. Oh, actually, yeah, two things I want to talk about before we wrap up. Um, one, if someone's interested in ayahuasca, I know that you have a book. What is that they can start to like dive into if they're curious about the medicine, if they're curious about if this is the right path for them?
Mhm.
Yeah, what is your book title? Where do we find that? And
Yeah, the book title is Anonymous Awakenings with Ayahuasca, and
mm,
the link can be in the show notes.
beautiful.
And it's a collection of anonymous stories of a variety of people and their experience and what they've transformed. If people look on YouTube, they're going to see a lot of trip reports. I
Mm,
sat with the shaman, they gave me this cup, and then they blew tobacco on me, and then they sang that it's going to be a lot about the experience,
mhm,
whereas this book is all about the transformation. I started
mm,
off a meth addict and I didn't have a home and I couldn't see my daughter, and now I have my own business and a home and I have, have partial custody of my daughter. Or I was a smoker and now I'm not. Or I was a high-powered attorney and now I've reoriented my life to, feel like I have more purpose. It's a series of stories of transformation.
love it.
So Anonymous Awakenings with Ayahuasca. And
Oh,
then I'm working
I,
on another book coming out. It's going to be called Ayahuasca Secrets, Tips and Tricks for Meeting the Master. And
mm,
it's literally going to be a step-by-step guide for preparing for ceremony and then integration, like kind of like holding the hand all the way from front to end. Because I
love
think
it.
there's a lot of people going to ceremonies, even in Peru, where that preparation and the integration is not included. So this will be kind of an accompaniment for that.
Oh, I just love what you're doing, what you're putting out there into the world because it's so needed. And I personally, as you know, have not sat with that medicine. Um, and
Yeah,
I was never one of those people that wanted to just find a random place to go in a different country with people that I did not know. And I do feel, truly in my heart grateful that when that does happen and when that spirit does call to me, it certainly will be with you. And I love that you are able to come on here and that you're able to speak about it and that you're so readily accessible and you're so knowledgeable for those people who are a little bit hesitant or just don't want to just try to pick some random place.
right.
I fully trust you like with my life and I've seen the work that you do and I've seen how you've held space and it is just such an honor about how serious you take it and the reverence that you have for the medicine and for everybody that you come across and that you're really doing it in a very ethical and um, like respectful way. But one of the stories I do want to talk about when it comes to your own journey with ayahuasca is people think that it's going to bring up all of this like painful stuff or negative stuff or things that they're not, they haven't been looking at. But the one story that really resonates with me so strongly is how Aya can also show us more of our true self and of our true essence of who we are outside of our wounding. And so, can you talk a bit about the intention that you had to? Um, I don't want to squash your words, but I remember you telling me a story where Aya actually revealed to you what the truth of the universe was like. Right? You said that the universe is opulent.
Mm.
So,
Mm. Oh, you know, I think something that ayahuasca and plant medicine has really opened my eyes just a little bit. I don't think I really have a clear understanding of the vastness of it, but if there's anything I can convey to your listeners is that the green things that we see in the world around us are gods.
mm,
I obviously believe in the grand creator, but these plants are gods. They have powers and wisdom and beauty and souls that we have not taken the time to get to know.
mm,
And this is what I do in my plant dietas is I go and I sit with them and I fast and I be with them and I do ceremony with them so that I can understand what are your skills? What do you have to teach me? Because they are like the wise sages that are just sitting on the sidelines watching us go through our life, walking right past a bucket of wisdom,
mm,
and not realizing that we're walking past a teacher. We're
mm.
walking past a Jesus incarnated into a plant. It's
Love it.
that powerful. And so one of the ceremonies that I had with ayahuasca was really I was working on understanding a dream that I had had, and she's great at helping me interpret my dreams. And the dream that she was trying to what she told me was wealth is foreign to you.
Mm.
Skipping the whole like what the dream was about, but the interpretation was wealth and abundance is foreign to you. It
That's so
literally
powerful. Coming
was
from where I come
for,
from, like
yeah,
literally like coming from lack,
yeah,
scarcity,
yeah,
feeling like
yeah.
poverty mindset, like literally that's imprinted
Don't
in
take
all
too
of
much,
our,
don't use too much,
yeah,
you know, limitation.
yeah,
Yeah,
I can't have that because I'm not worthy, I'm not
right,
enough.
right. Yeah.
Oh,
Better watch how we spend this. And so,
so what was that words again? Wealth is foreign to you?
yeah,
Whew,
wealth is foreign to you.
so powerful.
And yeah, the dream was basically I was staying in an Airbnb, and the people who the Airbnb was an Indian couple, and they were dressed in these beautiful silk, rich colored, like almost ceremonial clothes, you know,
Mm.
Mercedes in the driveway. And then the room I was in was like this ochre colored room with no furniture. It would like look like a basement. And I was just like, what's going on here? And so that's what she said to me, was like, my room looked like a basement, no furnishings, nothing opulent. But the rest of this couple's house, and she used a foreign couple, an Indian couple, to convey that it's foreign to me. And
Mm,
so it was really powerful. And so then she had me say, I'm a millionaire, until it felt real,
mm.
until it didn't feel foreign or weird to say it, and to like literally kind of swim in that water to get used to how that feels. And she said, the universe is opulent. The universe is opulent. And I looked around and I was like, it is. Look at all the beautiful things in the universe that the creator makes, from flowers to the diversity of lettuces to the grandeur of sequoias and redwoods to the minutia of the little teeny tiny little wildflowers. Like there's just so much abundance and beauty, and the smell of a plumeria or a gardenia. There's so much for us to appreciate with
Wow.
every sense, with our eyes, with our nose, with our hands, the texture, all of the different textures of the leaves and the earth and the grounds and the rocks. And like we have so many tools to use in such a beautiful fashion. It's so opulent. And
Wow.
I realized that this idea that there's scarcity was not in alignment with the universe, that I am opulent, I am abundant, and I am allowed to buy that ridiculously expensive, in air quotes, you know, ridiculously expensive dress, because I am worth it and it is beautiful and I am abundant. I don't have to worry about, okay, I spent X number of dollars on this dress. Now I'm not going to be able to pay my mortgage this month. No. And when I started
Mm.
living that way, it started showing up that way more
That's
and more
right.
and more. I've never
We're the
regretted
energetic,
buying the
right?
dress. Yeah. And
Right.
then
Like
the
it's
next
not,
dress, you
oh,
know?
right. It's not about that. And the more and more conscious I become, the more I realize it is the energy that we put into it that makes it so,
Right. Yes.
right? So it is like wealth consciousness is an energy,
Mhm.
right? It's not something that we attain to, it's something that we remember. It's something that
Remembering.
we
Yeah.
access
Yeah.
in our cells. It's a cellular memory that we think, I can't feel that way until this, right? But I love how she just showed you of like, no, 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 no. Like,
You feel it first.
try this on and feel this.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, what a powerful, powerful ceremony for you.
Yeah.
And for
Thank
all of the listeners out there to know, what is possible and what is true about you and your essence and your divinity here on this planet.
you. Yeah. You know, speaking into that, I'll share one more thing. I did a dieta with tobacco, and I asked the question,
Just so
Tell me
those that don't
something.
know, what is a dieta real quick? So,
Okay, a dieta is that a space in time and place that's carved out to be with the plant and only the plant. So for me, it's 5 days long. I go into the woods on the other part of our property, away from everybody. No phone, no books, nothing to distract me. I might have some art if the plant asks me to make art. But it's a solitary isolation with just the plant. So it basically would be like going on like a 5 day date with
mm,
someone where you're not distracted by anything else.
love
And
it.
the first day I do an
Date with the
ayahuasca
plant with no
ceremony.
distractions.
Yeah, yeah.
Got it.
3 days of dry fasting, no food, no water. And then on the last fifth day is another ayahuasca ceremony. And it's all with the plant. So I don't leave that space unless the plant tells me to go get something or in from the woods. But I'm just in this, 20-foot circle with my tent and me and the plant. So that's what a dieta is. And it's profound.
Mm.
This is where I've
Talk
received the
about
most profound
discipline.
teachings.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. But it's worth it. And the plants will tell me a lot of times ahead of time, I'm going to give you XYZ, in this dieta. And it's like, wow.
Mm,
So there's a lot of motivation behind that. But what the tobacco plant told me in one of my days of dry fasting, I was just talking to it and I said, tell me something I don't know. And it said, you are a star compressed into a human body.
mm.
And I just sat with that. Like, wow, a star compressed into this meat suit.
Whew.
Yeah. Talk about opulent.
Right? No
Yeah.
wonder people have near-death experiences and don't want to come back.
Right. Exactly. Exactly.
Oh, and it's so true. It's so true.
Yeah.
What was your initial reaction to that?
I sat with it. I was just wowed. Like, wow, how much energy and power and light and brilliance is in a star
Mm,
that we can even see from this distance, like looking at the sun, how powerful the sun is, and that I am that to some degree or another compressed into this human body. Whoa. And I had been really contemplating power. Last year, my word for the year was power, and looking at what ways am I disempowering myself or others, and what ways am I empowering myself, and how can I access more of my power? And, for not power over, but power within.
mm.
And that was huge for me to really be with the power that is contained within a star.
It's so
And I
crazy
still
true.
don't think I quite get the fullness of it.
Yeah. It's reminding me of my very first Akashic record reading. For those that don't know, that your Akasha is the library of all of your lifetimes energetically that you've ever lived. And she had said, it is now safe to relax and to emanate your power. And I was like, I don't even know what that means. What is that? Right. It was just very curious to me when she said it. And slowly and slowly and slowly over time, it is that, right? It is the relaxing into your power and just knowing the inner knowing of who you are, why you're here, how you serve, the impact you want to make, the influence you want to have with complete love and trust for the universe, for the God consciousness that surrounds us all the time.
Yeah.
And it's such a beautiful thing to step into. And I think it's so important that we do that inner work and that we become curious and that we become seekers and questioners about bigger things, about what's going on within us, and not be afraid to face ourselves because there's so much magic that comes from that. Awesome
Magic. That's
stories.
my word
Pure
for this day.
magic, right? Pure magic.
Yeah.
All right, we have a couple more minutes, a little bit more time. So, along with your ayahuasca tinctures, I know that when you came to visit, you actually gifted me with one of your other tinctures that I would love for the world to know about, which is your bodyguard. And
Mm.
if you don't mind dropping into how this came into existence, I would love for you to share that
Yeah.
story.
Absolutely. Well, I'll start by saying I don't travel anywhere without my bodyguard.
Yes,
It's always
meaning like
in my,
before plane rides, before,
yeah,
yeah. So
yeah,
tell
it's
me,
in my purse, it's in my travel on. I have one in my purse, I have one in my carry-on bag. I always have my bodyguard with me because there's just those moments in life where we feel like, my throat's scratchy, or I'm suddenly feeling a heavy malaise, like I feel like my immune system just got hit. And usually sometimes it's right when you walk off the plane or something like that. So I always have it there to kind of like have that big gun in my pocket to just fire it down before it begins. But
love it.
the way that I found Bodyguard was in the first couple of years that we had the retreat center, the property that we're on. We were going through some legal navigation with our local county and neighbors, and we weren't able to hold retreats. And so we had just let the property go. We were really focusing on our own internal work, learning to love our neighbors as ourselves. Like, what do we need to work on so that we can get this outer world fixed so that we can hold the space the way we intend to? And as life would just kept growing around us, our ceremony circle was overtaken by this weed. And I was coming back from my meditation tree one day with my flute in my hand, and I've been practicing my instruments, and I walked by and I just looked at the ceremony circle and I was like, oh, this looks so trashy. I need to mow this. And I heard this
As we do as
voice.
women, right? We just clean it all up. It's all gotta go. Get the shit out.
Yeah. I
Oh,
heard
so
this
true.
voice say, don't mow me. Again,
Mm.
very succinct, very direct, not pussyfooting around, right? And I was like, whoa, like it was not from my own head. I could not have made this up. And the only plant that was there was this one plant that I took pictures and identified it as John Charles. Hyptis verticillata is the scientific name. And so I started to make a tincture of it. I researched it. It's an incredibly powerful, potent plant. It does a variety of things, but specifically it's antibiotic, antibacterial, antiviral, antifungal, kills ticks, kills ear mites, helps with digestion, pain, inflammation. Like it's originally sourced from like Jamaica and the islands, and they use it for everything.
Mm.
It will also cause abortion, so it is an abortifacient. So I don't recommend anybody who's pregnant that wants to stay pregnant take this. That's my big disclaimer. But that's John Charles. And then we also have a lichen that falls from the trees. It only grows in healthy, unpolluted air. It's a lichen that grows in the tops of trees. And after we have a big storm with wind or rain, we'll have a lot of lichen with on the branches on the ground. And it's also antibacterial, antifungal, virucidal, and specific to the lungs and the urinary tract.
Wow.
And so
What is
I
that
just
one
have
called?
this usnea,
Okay.
USNEA. And
And what is
so
it?
I
What's the tincture on your site with that one?
usnea.
Oh, is it? Okay.
It's
All right.
just, yeah. So originally I had John Charles as a tincture on the site, and I had usnea as a tincture on the site. And I decided for my daughter and myself, I was just going to mix them together. And I sent her off to college with this bottle of, and I just named it the Bodyguard. And she took it to college and she's like, Mom, this thing is the shit. You have
Wow.
to put a label on this and put it on the website. So I still have to get it on the website. It's been a couple of years. I haven't done that, but yeah, it's super powerful. It's a combination of both plants. So you get all the benefits of the John Charles plus the added kick of the usnea. And then my formulation, when I put it on the website, it's actually going to have reishi in it as well. So it's going to have all the benefits of reishi. So it'll truly be like an adaptogen, preventive. Oh, the other thing about John Charles is it prevents cell mutation. I can't
Mm.
say it cures cancer, but we have put it on moles and skin tags on our body and watched them peel off like a sticker within a week. It's
Wow.
really powerful. So it's, anti-carcinogenic, antibiotic, and then add the reishi and everything. It's super powerful. So
That's
that'll
so
be on the website
incredible to
soon.
me. It's literally like everything that we need for our body to heal anything, to cure anything is made out of the earth.
Yes.
It really
Yes.
is so fascinating to me how
Everything you
we've
need is right
gotten
here.
so far away from that in our culture.
Yeah.
We could
Yeah.
go on a whole nother soapbox about that, but I love how you are so in tune with that and you're so skilled at just your craft, like making tinctures and drums and like like you are a true medicine woman in human form. And I love the way that you explain it in a practical way that us humans that aren't necessarily part of this spiritual community or on that path can understand, because most people want to just say like, oh, that's a bunch of baloney, but you have real time experiences and stories to and testimonies and um, evidence to how this has really changed people's lives. Like
Yeah.
that's the work that you get to do in the world.
It's been an honor and a privilege to share this path with so many people and to see their lives literally change, to see marriages saved, to see families reunited, to see illness, fall away, to see people lose, like let go of chronic pain. It's truly been a journey. But what I will say is it's not just me. Anybody who takes the time to sit with a plant and to listen and to give it their attention, to watch it, like I had to learn to do with my daughter, it will speak to you if you listen. It's all right there. The teachers are all around us. It's just taking the time. It's just like when your clients come to you, we have homework that we suggest or recommend. And if they take the time and do it, then they have results. And if we don't, even for ourselves, if we just keep on autopilot going through life, staying busy, then we don't experience these magical moments. But we all have magic available to us, and the plants are a huge source of that is really highly overlooked.
I love it. It's so good. So where do we find access to you? How do we stay in touch? How do people find you? I know that you're working on rebranding and a new website. Like when's that going to come out? Tell us all about Shannon and how to find your magic. I know
Yeah,
you mentioned your website earlier, but
our website is going to be updated, but it's still there. So you can find us at greatspiritfarm.org. You can find the ayahuasca tincture on there, or you can go to ayadose.com for the tincture. There's a link to my coaching page if people want to work with coaching. And then if people are interested in ceremony, we don't really advertise, but if you heard it on this podcast and you feel called, just reference the podcast and Alicia and fill out the contact form and let us know that you're interested. If you don't reference the podcast or Alicia, we'll say, sorry, we're a private church. But if you do, just let us know that you're interested and what their intentions are. So that's how to contact us. We're also on Facebook at Great Spirit Farm, and then people can find, not Facebook, well, we are on Facebook as well, but Instagram at Great Spirit Farm. And then I'm also on Instagram at Luashea Luminosa.
I love it. We will put all of that in the show notes. And I can't wait to see how your work continues to expand. I really, truly feel that we are coming up against a radical shift and reset to where we are starting to want new ways of healing, new ways of being in the world, new ways of working with ourselves. And we're starting not to trust a lot of the stuff that's out there. And I feel that your work is coming at a very pivotal time. And I cannot wait to see how people start to use their ayahuasca tinctures with the microdosing. I know like psilocybin is a huge thing right now that's got a lot of headway of like people starting to microdose using that medicine. But I think that this is an untapped industry and you
Yeah,
are at the forefront of it. And I'm so excited for you. And I couldn't be more grateful to be on this path and just walking it with you to see how you really are you're just changing. You're changing the world with
thank you.
everyone that you work with. And
Thank you.
I'm honored and grateful.
Thank you. Yeah, I think that personally, I think the ayahuasca microdose is going to be bigger than psilocybin for a variety of reasons. But it's exciting to be in this world and to feel like I'm doing something that's helping people live a more beautiful life, because we all know it's possible. We all feel in there somewhere that there's more, that there's a greater experience or a deeper purpose that we can tap into. And even for me myself, I'm living my purpose, I'm living the dream, but it's always can go deeper. So having the support of these plants to be able to do that is a real gift. It's a
Oh,
genuine gift.
it's so true. Yes, we are meant to expand, right?
Mhm. Yeah,
We are meant to grow the way that nature grows, and we are always
we're
meant to
either
evolve.
expanding or contracting. One or the
Mhm.
other is never stagnant.
So true. Well, I love you. And I am, again, truly grateful for you. I will definitely be asking you to come on the podcast again sometime in the future for updates to talk about how you've worked through your trauma using this medicine and how you've really done some massive, deeper work to excavate the things that the plants have shown you. But for now, we encourage you to follow her, to try out the tinctures, and to trust your body and trust that divine intelligence inside of you, because it will not lead you the wrong way.
Thank you. Thank you, Alicia. Thank you for your grace and your brilliance and your light that you're sharing into the world. The messages that you have to give are equally as powerful. So I appreciate your voice.
I received that. Thank you,
Mhm.
sister. Thank you so much for staying to the end of the episode. As you can see, the path to healing is such an individual journey. And if you feel called to explore the plant medicine route, obviously do not do anything without consulting your primary doctor and making sure that you can handle that. And do not be afraid to reach out to Shannon. She is a wealth of information when it comes to this realm. And I personally would not trust anybody with my healing process unless I knew that they've done the work themselves, that they've studied the medicine, and that they are going to be the one that's going to see you all the way through from start to middle, finish, and end. She will answer any question that you have. So just go on her website, greatspiritfarm.org, fill out the contact information, check out the tinctures that she has, and do not do anything without professional or medical guidance. I hope that you found every single thing that we said in this episode incredibly helpful. And do not forget to like it, to share it, to leave a review, and also to subscribe to Shannon's newsletter so that you find out the upcoming things that she has going on at her amazing farm. And I really hope that you enjoyed and that we'll see you next time.